some men too, but usually women are more like they are more drawn to the romance, the story, the build up, not just a quick get it done, get it over with, like most guys. We need like foreplay.
Oh my god!
We're just gonna call it foreplay. Welcome to the Pixie podcast, where we talk about foreplay. Hi guys, welcome to LoveCast, the Boys Love podcast. I'm your host, Pixie, and with me are my co-hosts, Alexa and Kayla.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey. So, we are going to get into some BL TV film ratings in a bit, but first we're going to do a little bit of tea time. Today we wanted, it's not like a specific like tea time topic really, it's just an interesting note that I made the other day because Piof like had to do this whole message on Twitter about the NC scenes in Cutie Pie, the episode that aired today.
Episode 8, yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because they put it in an 18 plus ratings because of the NC scenes. And people were giving them backlash because of it. Like, there is a whole part of this fandom that's very, you shouldn't put like sex in BL because it's fetishizing and it's objectifying gay men or whatever. And on the other hand, you have people being a little bit mad at Hwang Da-sol, who's the director of Blooming, because she described the not safe for work scenes as, just 1 minute, I'll find the exact thing she said. Okay, so in an interview, she said, "I avoid including sensational scenes to attract interest from viewers. Including too much physical contact scenes for sensational scene is a poison to BL genre. That's why I added the silhouette scene in this film," talking about the sex scene in Blooming, which they just filmed in silhouettes.
Right.
So she was getting backlash for saying that it's sex scenes in BL is basically toxic. So you have like these two sides of the fandom, which are both really extreme because they have really strong opinions on this, both sides. And it's very hard to navigate because I do see the points of each side. I do. At the same time, I'm just gonna lay my thoughts out here. I think that are we gonna normalize gay relationships? You need to stop treating them like they're just there for fetishizing. They're abnormal. Like a sex scene in a movie or film is normal. I was watching Bridgerton. There's a lot of sex in that season. First season, holy shit. But I didn't like react much. It's just sex scenes. It doesn't like, it's normal. We see them all the time now. But if you're gonna try and tell me that sex scenes in BLs, if you watch that, you're fetishizing, you are making gay sex an abnormal thing. Like, it's not natural. It's not normal. It's just for people objectifying them. And you're not supposed to watch it. You can't watch it. It shouldn't be watched. Like, it's like that to me is more wrong than just normalizing it.
Yeah, I feel like I need to think about my thoughts here. Because I have like multiple different tracks that my mind wants to go on to adjust like multiple of these things.
Same.
In terms of what like Hwang Da-soo said, I think there tends to be this opinion that a lot of people have that in order for BL to be seen as like a legitimate genre, it needs to be taken more seriously. And, I think that maybe people think sex scenes will take away from the legitimization of BL as like a serious genre that people can see for something as more than sex. But I don't know. I think it all depends on how the scenes are used, because there are plenty of shows that we have seen and watched that, put in a lot of tokenized sex scenes for the sensational value and in order to grab viewers, and they have no real purpose. But at the same time,
versus non-fan service.
Right. And at the same time, like you said, like sex is a natural thing. So, and it's a natural thing for people in these relationships in these series to be exploring. So like, it really is like something you have to find the balance on. And I think, I did watch the scene in Cutie Pie. I like watched it just a couple hours ago. I mean, it was definitely 18 plus. So like P.O.F. was right for rating it that way. But I also think it was very well done. It was a very beautiful scene. And I think it did a good job of capturing Leanne and Kua's relationship. So like, I don't really understand how people could get upset about that scene being included before they even saw the scene and saw how it played out.
They were upset before they saw it. I'm just
now,
saying.
People might have some trauma from Why Are You? Because, we know how the scenes in Why Are You got towards the end of the series. But, like, I think it's just kind of weird that people were so reactionary. Like, if you watched the scene and found it very distasteful or objectifying or whatever, then that's a completely different thing, and speak your mind on that. But to be so reactionary before the scene even happened, like, that feels a little bit weird to me. I don't really understand where that comes from.
Is some of the outrage about the 18 plus rating the fact that YouTube restricts people whose age is lower from seeing that?
Maybe. I do know that what I remember seeing in his statement, he was specifically like stating to make sure that like you have your correct birth date on YouTube and stuff like that. So, when they slap an age restriction on there, you have to confirm your birth date and stuff before you watch it. So I don't know, maybe people were, worried that they wouldn't be able to watch it because they're not 18. And like, I get, you watch a whole series and then suddenly you can't watch an episode because the scene is age restricted, but
it's just a part of the show. And actually it doesn't have any like big plot.
It was a whole 15 minutes of them making out. Like there was like a little bit of discussion in there, which, was good, but
consent discussion. Yeah. Very good. But I mean, the scene in itself didn't actually have any plot value. You can easily watch the show without watching that scene and not miss out on anything. But at the same time, it was a natural thing to have in there for their relationship and moving on. Like it did add to the show. But at the same time, you wouldn't lose anything if you didn't watch it.
Right. I think it's just like you said, it's two very extreme opinions, and I personally think that like there is a balance in between the two that is where I like to watch my BL, and like I think the Cutie Pie scene was actually a good example of it. Like, it's not NSFW for the sake of being NSFW. And it also did do a good job of like depicting a gay sex scene in a way that was like normalized and a logical step for their relationship.
I actually have a little bit of problem with them rating things 18 plus because from going into our topic today, from Norwegian ratings, 18 plus is porn. Anything 18 rating is porn, like straight out porn. and they actually they have a funny way of rating things in Norway. If if something is 15 plus, it can still be classified as soft porn. That's actually what they use when they explain it in the official document. Oh. They call it soft porn. That's okay for 15 plus. And for 18, it's hardcore porn. Like, this is the exact words they use.
Yeah.
In the official documents.
Norwegian documents.
Hardcore porn is 18 plus, and 18... Let's just say this. I have not seen a single movie or TV show rated 18 since I was 12.
Yeah.
In Norway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what can make it confusing is that I feel like saying something is 18 plus in what is the word I'm looking for? I don't want to necessarily just say the BL fandom, but I think saying something is 18 plus in relation to a bed scene has kind of taken on a term of its own outside of the official rating system, if that makes sense. Now, that being said, like, maybe when POF made that announcement, I don't know the Thai rating system, like, do they have a specific 18 plus rating in it? Would that be what that falls into? But yeah, like, here, 18 plus is typically, like, used for porn.
Yeah. But what is YouTube's rating?
YouTube's rating system?
I don't know. I think you have to be at least 13 technically to have a YouTube account. Yeah. 13 or 14. So I don't know what YouTube categorizes
YouTube
as 18
is really
plus.
strict about the content on there. So them rating it 18 plus might just be for YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, it was specifically for the uncut version on YouTube. Of course, that's the only place they're showing the uncut version as far as I know. So I'm not sure if it would be differently rated if they were able to put it on like a different platform. But yeah, I think when it comes to YouTube, I think it's hard because it's not like necessarily a television platform. So I feel like their rating system is going to be different than like what we would see for like a television or movie rating system, which, you know, they are very strict. And there's a lot of things, like very small things that can get your content bumped up to being like not suitable or age restricted or whatever. So
just cursing more than one time in a video can get you age restricted.
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, it doesn't surprise me that scene had to be 18 plus by YouTube standards, because it would easily, I think, fall into their standards for age restricted content. But in the grand scheme of things, like, it's no different than a lot of like heterosexual bed scenes that I've watched on cable television in America over the years. So I don't know, they didn't show any more than I've seen in that kind of content as a teenager, or sometimes even younger, depending on, you know, what I was watching and who around me was watching stuff. So
yeah,
I don't think it was any more explicit than anything I've seen on like heterosexual TV ever. So I don't know.
Yeah. When I was researching this whole rating from TV and everything, we were looking up the ratings on Viki, and I think Viki probably has its own rating system, but it does show up differently from which country you're from. But I can't imagine like the Norwegian rating system has anything to do with what goes up on Viki, so I don't know how they classify it.
I feel like I'm pretty sure Viki is a US based company, so I think maybe they would use the US guidelines as their base, and then, you know, just adjust the actual rating depending, like that actual country's rating.
Closest. Yeah, because what surprised me the most about the rating when I was looking through it was when I saw that Tharn Type is rated 18. And
so porn rating.
Tharn Type is rated as, if you go by Norwegian, it's rated as hardcore porn.
That's so funny.
I think that's across, because we looked up like the ratings for Australia for Heather, US for me and Kayla, and Norway for Pixie, and Tarntype is the only one across all of the, like, we looked up a lot of the popular titles. It's the only one that has, like, it's the only one I found that has an NC-17 rating, which is, like, the US equivalent of, like, hardcore, like, you know, that's the after hours, like, pay-per-view stuff you find on your TV, and, like, Heather put in here that it has an R18 plus rating in Australia. It's the only one out of all the BLs that, like, we found that's rated that highly.
And for context here, Game of Thrones was rated 15.
That's wild.
I looked
Game
up
of Thrones with the violence, death, sex, rape, child death, everything was rated 15.
That's pretty crazy. I looked up Shameless because I love that show, and the rating is 13.
Wow.
13, and like every episode is non-stop sex scenes,
drugs, and that's all that kind of stuff.
Drugs, violence, criminal activity.
Yeah, because that's a distinction that we have to make. Like, ratings aren't just affected by sex.
Yeah,
like, it has to be with violence, showing the realism of war and
drugs,
blood,
alcohol,
and drugs,
language,
suicide, animal abuse. A lot of these things factor in. I actually, when I was reading up on Norwegian ratings, they weren't like, I was trying to find out how specifically they rate, like if a show has these things, will it go into these categories? But they're more of like, they rate out of context, mood, and the character of a person. So it's
interesting.
Yeah, and I read that like nudity doesn't mean that it will get a high rating. Like,
so it depends on the context of the nudity.
Non-sexual nudity can be shown to kids.
I mean, you know, honestly, I think that makes sense compared to just automatically slapping like mature on it because nudity. Someone shows there's a naked body, even if it's in a non-sexual context.
Yeah. It's a lot about how well it affects a child or teen mentally to watch it. That's what makes the rating. So that for me was really interesting because I've never thought about that, and it's not what I've experienced from often what they rate in America. Like, it's always talk about like, okay, if there's a kiss scene, if there's a sex scene, if there's a drug. So,
I feel like America's
not much talk about context for it.
No, not at all. Like, when I was looking up like the TV guidelines for America, the three main things that they consider going into how they rate someone are dialogue, like how suggestive, crude, that kind of stuff, the language and dialogue are, sexual situations, and violence. So it's very like surface level, and it's like if someone, it's like moderate violence, intense violence, graphic violence, you know, like that's basically like, you know, it's very simple. They don't put a lot of detail into it, and I feel like it probably definitely doesn't consider the context of things as much.
Yeah, and I mean, that gives companies a loophole, I think. Because they can try and get around all these specific demands instead of looking on the actual mental effect the scenes have. So, yeah. But I'm really, what I've noticed from gay movies and TV shows, they often get a higher rating just because it's gay.
Queer content, yeah.
Yes. I was reading an article about how LGBT media is rated throughout Asia. And so, like, for example, in Singapore, 21 plus.
Yeah, I saw that LGBT. Article. Yeah.
And then, like, they use Queer Eye as an example. So across media, it's either like 21 plus in Singapore, or it's like 15 plus in the Philippines, or it's 13 plus, I believe, in Japan. So it's very interesting to see how different countries rate things based on, I would say, how I feel like conservative the country is.
Yeah, because thinking of like Queer Eye as the example, like that is like some of the most wholesome gay content out there, because like it's just gay men, non-binary people going around and like trying to improve people's lives, and like the fact that can get slapped with a 21 plus rating just because the cast is filled with queer people, like that definitely is something that I would not have expected. Like, but yeah, I guess if it's a more conservative place, then they just don't want people to see queer people and people under a certain age to see queer people in any context, because there's this queerness is tied to like being inappropriate almost, basically, like sexual by nature kind of.
Yeah.
Pixie, you look like you had something to say.
I'm just checking Queer Eye for Norway, and it's set at 12.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind 12. Of like...
At the same time, there's
it's like, what is in Queer Eye?
Sexual or violence.
I don't even know. Do they curse in Queer Eye?
I don't think so. No, I remember one episode. I remember one episode where Anthony was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I cursed" or something. So I don't think that that's usually a thing that they do.
So it's like, what would get it rated that high?
Self-rating for Norway. I think if it was actual Norway rating it, I don't think it would go that high.
That's interesting that Netflix would rate it that way. Yeah, apparently. See, this is interesting. There's like this media outlet that I just pulled up says like the common sense rating for Queer Eye would be like ages 14 plus, but like parents who have watched the show said kids as young as 7 could like watch it. So it's interesting that like even people, like the rating system is so outdated that like people who actually watch the content, like I feel like it doesn't make sense to have a show rated by this arbitrary rating system that doesn't even take into context the content, and then like actual parents and people watch the show and they're like, yeah, a literal child could watch this, it's fine, you know.
This is IMDb. They have this whole parents guide, and it says there's none sex and nudity, none violence and gore, mild profanity. They use like the F word like no more than 3 times. Mild alcohol, drugs, and smoking. It's just like there's some pictures
alcohol.
Of people with
they
alcohol.
Drink. Yeah,
like
that makes sense.
A pack of cigarettes in the frame. And frightening and intense scenes, none. And still, I've seen like children animations with more of these things.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
That is so fucked up.
It's very interesting.
Really said something. Yeah, like if you can't even like, I can't imagine what I don't know, I feel like I'm trying to imagine like how something like Tarn Type would be put on like TV in America. And I'm just like, I'm thinking about like, I watch Euphoria and like they show more than Tarn Type ever has. Like, they show titties every episode, hardcore drug use. I mean, and HBO is like not considered cable television. So they get away with showing more than like a network TV, or HBO is cable television. So they get away with showing more than network TV would be able to. But I'm like, yeah, I feel like something like Tarn Type probably would not go on like network TV without like major censoring.
Yeah, I mean, do you know how many parents would call in to the network?
Oh god!
Like,
I mean, this is from the country that passed the "Don't Say Gay" bill.
We're not. I mean, talk about it.
Oof. But it's really like I looked into Skam in Norway. For those who don't know, it's the it's a teenage TV show depicting like a normal teenage life in Norway, and season 3 has gay couple or gay storyline with a lot of mental issues and actually pretty heavy stuff. And that has in Norway a 12 rating.
Oh.
And there's nudity in there. He walks around naked. And
but
they're
it takes
smoking.
into like the context of the interest.
There's a scene where they they show like 15 minutes of them. They're just lying there smoking. But I find it interesting because in France it's rated 18.
Huh. Yeah. So it really does just like it's different based on every single country. So
Spain
like
16, Brazil 12, Norway 12. It's not even rated in America.
They said fuck it.
We're not gonna deep into that one.
Yeah, I feel like maybe it's just like the countries that have more like context driven ratings like Norway does probably actually look into the content and be like, yeah, they're showing this stuff, but it's also like depicting like the real struggles of being a teenager. I don't know. But like, yeah, it's interesting that like I couldn't imagine it being really rated as low as 12 just because it is like showing some like teen partying and drinking and that kind of stuff. But like, it's interesting how like the context can be taken into it. But yeah, I feel like it really all started like this whole discussion as usual started like before after recording when we were like going back and forth about how things are rated differently like in our countries on Viki specifically. And when I went back to look up like some of those ratings, I don't know like how often Viki adjusts their ratings and stuff like that, but a lot of the shows that have previously been rated like maybe an R or mature rating, a lot of their BL content has been taken down to a PG-13 rating, which I think is a lot more appropriate considering like a lot of them have makeout scenes and bed scenes and drinking and that kind of stuff. But I feel like I don't know like how often they adjust their ratings and stuff like that, but I was surprised that so much stuff was PG-13 in America now on Viki.
Yeah, I think that Viki probably had an overhaul recently because there was a period where they weren't even marketing their BL as BL because every show has a tag. And there was a period of time that BL tag was gone.
Interesting.
Yeah,
if you wanted to find BL, you needed to search specifically or go into romance, or sometimes you would find them in romance, which was really weird. And then suddenly when they started importing all of these older shows, older BLs, they started tagging BL again. And I think that has to do with, again, it's capitalism. It was bringing in the views.
Yeah.
So.
They were like, it's time to give it its own category. Like, you know, something people can easily click on and find all of everyone who's going there for BL content can find all the BL content under one tag type thing.
But I find it really interesting because in Norway, and we've talked about this before, like the whole difference about like queer media in Western countries versus Asian countries, and how queer media, like a BL isn't really a thing in Western countries, especially like in Scandinavia. We don't have anything that's called BL.
It's just kind of like LGBT
media
content.
Yeah. But at the same time, when I searched up the queer media I know about, they were not tagged as queer media. They were not explicitly tagged as gay. It was either romance or drama.
Comedy. Yeah.
You don't find them like with extra tags. The only thing I could see if I go into IMDb on a movie that's called The Man That Loved Yngve. It's about a kid finding out that he's sort of in love with his classmate. And that doesn't have anywhere. It's like the title obviously it's about a man who's in love with another man, but other than that, there's no real tag that says this is gay, other than it's tagged with gay kiss.
Yeah. I feel like that can kind of be like either a good thing or a bad thing, because it's like, on one hand you could be like, oh, it's normalizing LGBT content and just putting it in with all the normal romance, comedy, etc. content, but at the same time it's like also like, this being queer is a significant aspect of this storyline, so maybe it should be noted as such type thing. But I don't know. It's kind of like I can see it either way.
It's harder to find for people who are looking for actual queer media. But at the same time, it also makes people who might not be willing to
inclined
watch
to
this
like
stuff
exactly
still
they can
watch this because
they might find themselves getting hooked. I think it really depends on the platform, because I know places like Netflix have very specific like sections in their catalogs for queer media, or even stories specifically about Black history, and like they're very like good at, I guess, for the most part, like giving specific highlights to LGBT content and that kind of stuff, grouping it in that way. But other platforms aren't the same, so it's all like, I feel like it all comes down to it really varies within platform. And I feel like BL being something that is mainly tied to Eastern, like the Asian countries and stuff like that, it's hard to like put it in the Western lens of how things would be rated, if that makes sense. I don't know.
It's like, I'm thinking of all the times on different platforms that I've specifically searched in an LGBT tag, and it's like, even though I am like, well, obviously, yes, we should normalize this as just like romance all around, I'm just thinking about it from like a logistic kind of like SEO standpoint, where it's like it might be a little harder to find that kind of media if you're queer and looking to watch it
specifically. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like another thing that kind of inspired this discussion was KinnPorsche, and how there was originally talks of it being rated 21 plus, and then it was like originally on IGA as only PG-13, and then people basically bullied IGE into upping the rating to like NC-17 before the first episode aired. People were like, I thought the reaction was a little bit interesting, because people were really concerned that like they wouldn't get a lot of the spicy content because it was only rated PG-13 on IGE, and like they really like went at IGE until they fixed the rating to be NC-17. And it was really interesting. I was like, I figured, it was probably just mistakenly rated as PG-13 and they would fix it eventually, but like, I don't know.
I mean, I don't understand why they would go at IG like that. But I do understand what they mean, that they want KinnPorsche to actually have like mature themed scenes, because it's a really mature story. So you need that for the story. At the same time, I'm like, the rating doesn't, like, they've already made the show. They're not gonna like pick out the explicit scenes. Like in the first episode, someone gets shot in the head and you see it, right?
Spoiler, we see bare ass in episode 2, so it's like
I haven't seen episode 2.
I haven't seen it either, but it's just been like on the timeline, and I'm like, oh, there's another one, another bare ass to check off.
Doesn't change that, so that was a little bit. I mean, if you're gonna get mad about stuff, like pick your battles. That was so unnecessary to use your energy for.
Yeah, I saw a lot of like, oh, I better get the pool scene type tweets, and obviously some of people are like partially joking when they say stuff like that, but also
at the same time,
I feel like some people weren't.
Yeah,
and it's like one of those things where like I feel like you need to remind people that KinnPorsche isn't just rated NC-17 because of the sex, but it's rated NC-17 because it's a mafia drama, and like people are gonna get killed probably like every single episode. So like, you know, that rating isn't just about how often Kinn and Porsche are banging. Like there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. Yeah. And that's all stuff we saw in the first episode. like, you know, it all contributes to the rating. So yeah, I don't know, it was an interesting reaction. I was very
I mean it does show off that some people in this fandom are too focused on objectifying these shows and BL in itself without like actually thinking about the plot and the story and what it has to like. I wouldn't get like, I am not mad at Blooming for not showing showing like silhouettes. I think she is like Kwang the Soul is so good at creating tension and creating feelings there without having to show anything. And
I mean, that scene was beautiful. I didn't need to actually see what was happening to feel what was happening in that scene.
Yeah,
you know?
Right? You still got, like, it still brought something to you from watching it. Like, I got more out of that scene than watching Don't Say No.
Why did that come into my head as soon as I was trying to think of an example of, like, a drama that would be the opposite of Blooming? I was like, Don't Say No with those unnecessary bed scenes every other episode. Like, you know.
Got so much more out of a Blooming than Don't Say No, and To My Star. And it's all about how you frame it, how you frame the story, how you build the tension. Because what people don't understand, it's not the sex they want to see, it's the tension. It's the weight. It's the build-up. If you're just getting sex, you're just watching a porn. And
well, that's what some people want. I just think you're like in the wrong place for that.
Go watch a porn. Like, what are you doing here? There's a lot of like gay porn out there. Go watch that.
I can't stop thinking about History 4's rating. This whole time I'm thinking about History 4's rating and the fact that I don't know, did it change? Is that another one that the rating was changed on?
It's currently
15 now.
It's 15, 15 plus Australia rating. It's rated R on the US Viki. So they did finally like adjust it to be a little bit more appropriate, but still for like a lot of some of the content that like the assault and stuff like that, like I don't know.
No, I just lost my train of thought. What was I rambling about?
Going to watch porn, if that's what you're looking for. If you're not here for the tension, then just go.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we are, like, some men too, but usually women are more, like, they are more drawn to the romance, the story, the build-up. Not just a quick, get it done, get it over with, like most guys. We need, like, foreplay.
Oh my god.
We're just gonna call it foreplay. Welcome to the Pixie podcast, where we talk about foreplay. No, but it's, if you think about it, like if you think about it in non sexual way, just don't think about foreplay as sexual right now. It's just we need the story to build up, right? That's why we watch romance, why we like romance, because we need that. It brings a good feeling to us, like having it continue. If you just got into like the good stuff right away, it wouldn't like be interesting to us.
I mean, even in porn, they have a specific porn that is like for women. That's supposed to be story driven and emotional driven versus like whatever men like to watch in porn. So like there's always that distinction of like women or female identifying people want romance and build up and whatever, as opposed to what men and male identifying people want, which is just like get it done, as Pixie said. So, but yeah, I mean, considering like BL's origins as a genre that is geared towards women and written by mainly women, you know, I think it makes sense for a lot of the stories to be more about like the tension and the build up than just the sex itself, which, you know, as it becomes more global and there's more global influence, I think that's why we're seeing a lot of BL that is a lot more spicy compared to stuff that we've gotten in the past, because, you know, there's a lot more people watching, there's bigger global influence, times are changing somewhat, so, you know, they can actually show men having sex on TV without, you know, I can't say without, because there are a lot of people that still protest that type of stuff, but, you know, they can show it more than they used to be able to, so I'm seeing a lot more spice.
Yeah. I just think there are some people, especially probably the younger generation, that don't understand that it's the tension they want and not the sex.
I mean, you get excited by seeing, you know, a hot makeout scene, especially if you're younger. You're like, oh, this is scandalous. And so obviously you're going to like look for more content like that. And, you know, you're young and exploring and stuff like that. We talked about that a lot with Crystal Marie when we had her on, like being young and exploring that kind of content. But, you know, you get to a point where like that can only do so much for you when you're watching media. And, you know, I'm definitely at that point when it comes to BL where it's like, all right, I need to see that there is actually a plot in this story beyond like just the makeout scenes that I see in the trailer and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about like normalizing stuff. Like if you get used to something, it's not going to be as exciting anymore. And it's like that with everything. Like everything you experience in life, if you're getting used to it, seeing it often or whatever, you're getting used to it, it's just there. But like if you're young, you've just gotten into BL, don't have a lot of sexual experience and all that, it's very exciting to see. And hormones are probably something too. And I do think like people are a little bit too fast to talk about fetishizing and stuff like that, which I think is some of the problems of people. Some of the reason why these higher rating for BLs and gay content is there, because they think they sexualize things too fast.
Yeah, that aren't necessarily as sexual in nature as like people might assume that they are.
Yeah, it's often talked about like gay. When you talk about gay relationships, it's automatically like centered around sex.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking about like some of these shows that like on this list is Keita Hatsukoi. That's rated PG-13 on Viki. In my mind, that show is like something a child could watch. Like what happens? Same. They hold hands. That's like the most extreme thing that happens in that romantic relationship. But it's like, it's already, because it's a queer relationship, it's like, I feel like the base for queer relationships starts at like PG-13. Like they don't think a child should be watching that, basically, and that says a lot.
How does Cherry Blossom and Why Are You have the same rating? How did that happen?
That's pretty interesting.
How does that even happen?
Because I'm like even thinking about content outside like the kiss scenes. I'm like, how, like, there's nothing in Cherry Blossoms After Winter. Like, yeah, there was like an imaginary makeout scene, but like outside of that, I feel like there's nothing that would bump it up to a higher rating, like in terms of language, violence, all that kind of stuff. Like, it's a very wholesome show. I mean, and Why Are You is Why Are You? So like, I get that why that has the rating it does.
There's
but it's
tongue in Why Are You?
I think that's, I think we've learned today that that's just a Z thing,
No. The tongue was Tommy and Jimmy in Why Are You?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's right.
They obviously taught C for his performance in Cutie Pie. Just saying.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
Yeah. No, that was so surprising. And I was so surprised about the rating for Until We Meet Again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's literal suicide.
I think the rating should be higher than PG-13 for Until We Meet Again because of the violence that is depicted in it.
I mean, that extends, like, obviously the suicide scene happens in the first episode, but they allude to that scene and go back to that scene multiple times throughout the series. So it's not like it's just like, this happened once and we never address it again. Like, that scene and what happened there is like kind of integral to the story. So like they allude to it a lot and show it a lot. So it's like, I don't know. I mean, it goes back, that makes me think of that whole controversy around 13 Reasons Why and how they ended up having to like go back and like completely re-edit the show. I mean, obviously Until We Meet Again was not at all on that scale and was framed very differently than the scenes were in 13 Reasons Why, but it's like, I don't know, suicide is not something to be taken lightly when you're going into rating stuff, and I feel like maybe they didn't take that into as much consideration as they should have with Until We Meet Again.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Until We Meet Again on Viki is rated 12.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I would not want a 12-year-old watching that scene.
Yeah,
I mean,
just to clarify, 12 in Norway means allowed for anyone 12 years and older, but also children down to age 9 can watch if they are accompanied by an adult.
Yeah. Yeah, that's most of the ratings here, like, are going around, like, being accompanied by an adult. Which is also, I don't know. I think for TV it's harder to do that because, like, there's so many avenues online now that you can watch a show. It's not like, you can only watch it when it's on TV and, your parents won't let that happen. You're 10 and you have an iPad, you can find any TV show you want and watch it without your parents ever knowing if they don't set the controls right. So I think it's a lot harder to monitor parental guidelines online. And maybe that's part of why some shows are so strict about the ratings when they put them online. But again, it goes back to the question of, are these things that they need to be rated so highly for, Like, but what's so wrong about a 10-year-old seeing a queer relationship? Why shouldn't a 10-year-old watch Queer Eye type thing?
Going back to YouTube and its rating, I think YouTube is not queer friendly at all.
No,
definitely not.
Not at all. Queer creators on YouTube get their videos demonetized a lot just talking about their experience, not going into like explicit details, not going into sex or anything like that, just their coming out story or something like that. It gets demonetized. And
I mean, we've had experiences like using the word queer and YouTube hides the comment just for using that word, and then you repost it with like LGBTQ plus and they'll accept it for now, but like even just using that word can get like your comments hidden and probably your videos hidden from searches and all that kind of stuff, which I don't know.
Like, we've literally never removed a comment on any of our videos, so any comments that disappear, it's not us, it's YouTube.
YouTube catches something in the content.
And we can't turn that off or anything. That's just YouTube. We haven't put any banned word into our comment section at all. So it's just YouTube. And we know because we get like email whenever there's a comment.
You'll see that the comment happens, and then you go to look at it on YouTube and it's just gone. And you're like, it was like 5 minutes ago and it's just gone.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It's insane.
And it's always on like
the person who posts the comment doesn't get told that it is removed either. It just gets removed. So if you post something and you don't go back to check it, it might be gone. You wouldn't know.
Or you do see that it's gone and you assume that like, not even just in our case, but that like someone removed it because they didn't want to engage with that comment, which like I'm sure for most other creators the same as us, that's not the case, you know.
It's really frustrating. YouTube, I think I do realize that they have a lot of issues with companies running ads on videos and stuff. They've had a lot of backlash from companies that companies don't just want their ads on some content. But at the same time, if this was a Norwegian company, they wouldn't get away with this. I'm just saying, like, Norway isn't really the most open place either, but it's very judgmental in society, but not in the laws. The laws are in place to protect the queer community. Like, the normal guy on the street will be an asshole about it, but there are still laws in place that will protect people, and a company would never get away with, like, excluding queer people.
Yeah, and, like, you know, you think about how things that are queer or talking about racism and that kind of stuff get blocked immediately, but like there's certain content, like what was that whole situation with Logan Paul where he had like a video that showed like someone hanging or something like that, and it took a lot for that video to get
dead body in Japan.
And it took so much for that video to get taken down. Like, people basically had to petition YouTube for that to happen. It was up for like over 24 hours, I think. And then you know, YouTube will ban a comment with the word queer in 2 seconds. So it's just like the standard for it. It's like, you know, it's coming from a place of hate, basically. And because whatever companies are backing them and whatever companies are putting their ads on these videos don't want to see queer content, and capitalism drives YouTube the same as every other place out there. So, you know, they're inclined to ban that kind of stuff quicker than they are other things that are actually bad, you know?
Yeah.
And on that depressing note, does anyone have any final thoughts?
I don't know. I think the way that Norway does the ratings based on how everything is framed makes a lot more sense than doing it in an umbrella way. Because I'm just thinking of so many shows and things where I'm like, well, this was framed very artistically, but it's still nudity. So in the US, it's still going to get like this certain rating. And then I'm also wondering, like, there are definitely some things across the board that all fans are probably going to be like, this isn't appropriate for this age range to see. But I think some people will have different thoughts about different things. Like, maybe someone will think that it doesn't need a higher rating if there is like death or suicide. And maybe someone will think that like it doesn't need a higher rating if there is violence or swearing. But I don't know. Like, I think a lot of it, a lot of the discourse, like, for example, like attacking KinnPorsche, a lot of it will come down to what you personally, morally think should be showed to what age.
Yeah. And it's so different from each country, each culture, everything.
There's so much that goes into influencing that. And yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and it depends on religion. It depends if you're a man or a woman. It's so much stuff going into this, and I also think like people should calm down a little bit about their opinions on this, because there are so many different cultures and opinions, and like we don't all agree on ratings on stuff and general like age limit. Like I'm probably less conservative in that area because of the culture I'm grown up with. But it's not like we're gonna sit here and yell at each other because of it. Like, I respect you guys have an opinion, and you guys respect me having an opinion on this. So I feel people need to stop being so gung-ho about everything.
Yeah.
They're literally having wars online because of this. Like, the amount of hostility some of these tweets have in them is, I don't see why you need to get so worked up about this. At some point you need to start respecting that people have a different opinion, and that's what this is. It's not like a big morality thing. It's more of a personal preference, personal morale thing. It's not a universal morality thing. So yeah. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of different opinions on this. So we would love to hear your opinion on it. It's very interesting to see how it differs from country to country, and obviously we can only talk about America and Norway. So if you have an opinion, leave it down for us in the comments, or go on Twitter or Instagram or TikTok, or we are everywhere. Even send us, if you have a really long opinion about this, send us an email and we will read it.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's it for our episode this week. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and share this episode with your BL-loving friends. Did you know we have a merch shop? You can find it at lovecastthepodcast.com. We have hoodies, stickers, shirts, and tote bags, and we'll have new designs coming soon, so stay tuned for more info. And finally, if you'd like to support the podcast and help us to continue creating and releasing episodes, you can join our Patreon, where you'll receive exclusive access to extra content like Kayla's reaction videos, my audio chapters, Alexa's character analysis post, behind-the-scene clips from interviews, podcast recordings that didn't make it into the final episode, and more. Thanks again for joining us this week. If we don't catch you in the Discord server, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
There's literally it's a Norwegian comedy movie. It's called Long Flat Balls 3.
What?
And yes, that is sexual, if you're wondering. It's rated 6. It's rated 6 years. Yes.
No.